Here we are again. This is the last in the series of 10 that I put out this month, so far this month. My next series will have different ephemera and all kinds of different treasures in it, but this is the one of 3 that were a cross stitch piece, which is a giant cross stitch I found under glass in a thrift store, and I turned it into junk journal covers. So the first 2 sold within hours actually of being posted. So this is the last one to go up, and congratulations to whoever gets to be the lucky owner of this little beauty. I actually used a newer book because I knew I was going to cover the whole front. The cross stitch is from the 1940s, and I knew that because when I pulled it out, the advertisement underneath was from the 1940s that was used to sort of secure it into the frame. It was a beautiful find. I'm going to turn that into a journal too. More to come on that. So I also added this antique crochet trim here and more vintage crochet here. A little bit of cheesecloth just to cover up some of the blemishes on the cross stitch. I wrapped them around, and you can see the aged cotton here, which I think is stunning. I like that it's aged. I added some trim and some tea-dyed paper. The tea-dyed papers are the only ones that are not authentic antique and vintage paper in my journals. Little vintage stamp here, The Magic Garden, which is a classic book, antique page. And here I have another one of these poems by Indigenous author Pauline Johnson, who wrote these in the late 1800s, and this was published in 1937. So that's a page and a poem from one of her books, Flint and Feather. And this is a very special page out of the 1938 Paris, France Almanac, Dimanche, Avril 1938, the 10th of April, 1938. And on the flip side, the 9th of April, 1938. If you want this flipped out for a different date, maybe somebody's birthday or your birthday, just put it in the, when you check out on my Etsy store, you can customize that. I throw in extras on all my journals, so feel free to ask for whatever tickles your fancy, and if I have it in my stash, it's yours with every purchase. So here is another little pocket pearl shop, and I have in here those little vintage playing cards. One from the 70s, one from the 50s. Are they cute? Again, if there's one you want specifically, just let me know when you check out. Look at this beautiful vintage Birds of North America book. It's still got its glossiness, and it's also got its weird coloring, which I love, the aged discoloration. And I am not sure what this little bird is, but I can look it up if anybody needs to know, and I just think it's absolutely adorable. Here's a 1930s music sheet, and that cardstock paper with a beautiful little winter image here from a Christmas Carol poetry book. Magic Garden page again, and more tea-dyed paper for you. And this is a page out of a 1940s yearbook. So we'll get to the fun pictures in a second. I made this pocket out of a blue ribbon advertisement in a cookbook, a blue ribbon cookbook. And here is just a little antique book page that had so much white space, I thought it would make more journaling fun for you. And that's mounted on top of a 1945 dictionary page. 1926 ledger page, blank, which is nice. And here is a plate, 151 from Courier Knives, I'm sorry, I keep getting that wrong. The shipwreck, actually, called Swallow. And that is quite precious. On the inside, there's another plate, 152, Washington's Dream. You can see there, George Washington. Very famous plate. And then another one of a storm in a ship here. They're very collectible. I was lucky enough to have 2 of these books, so I was able to use them up. This is very exciting for me because I found this totally by accident. They fell on the floor when I was cleaning up right after I had made this. Now, it's not from this pattern, but look at that. Is that not cool? How similar those are. So I thought this just has to live with this journal. So I kind of stole it from another one, and now it lives here where it needs to be. So have fun with that. If you're a cross-stitch lover, this is your journal. Here is a lovely print from Henri Rousseau. He's a Parisian artist, and this was published in 1956. That there's a different one in each of this series of 10 this month as well. And that one is probably my favorite because it's a lovely French scene, French countryside. And there's another little title from the Magic Garden, some old paper. And there's our 1949 senior rugby team. Actually, they're quite dashing, these fellas. There's more here. Pole vaulting. Is that still a thing? Hand stamped tea-dyed paper that I added. And here is a little bit stuck here. Here is another, it's mostly blank ledger page. There's a little bit of pencil here, markings, but mostly you can journal on that as well. And that's just mounted on top of another vintage book page. This is a really sweet indigenous Inuit image here from a 1930s book, children's book, and along with those glassine vintage envelopes that I acquired, and I put in 4 vintage stamps into there. So you can do whatever you like with those. And then this is a lovely picture from a book that you can journal on the back of. And that is all mounted on top of an antique book page as well. More Pearl Shop's store receipts, dried goods and notions, ladies and infants ready to wear. I just love it, from Cincinnati, Ohio. And I made a pocket out of a table doily. So that's fun. This is from a 1956 Theater Arts magazine. And a lovely full-page image here from a California garden in How to Make an English Garden. And there's the flip side of that Theater Arts magazine from the 50s, 1955, I believe it was. There's the flip side of that doily. And some Monopoly money. This page came out of a French book, La Rue Paris. And you can see some of the students' handwriting here. Monopoly money. And this is a page from the Emerald Isle, which is an Irish book of poetry from the very early 1900s. And this one's called The River Lee. And it's a lovely poem. And you can find more white space there to journal on if you choose, or just keep it because it's very special. Very, very old antique book page, a little brittle, which is why I always mount something on top of those ones. And here's a Snow White image from that children's book. Just a little bit of journaling spots up here, probably to cover up a blemish. I do that. And another 1926 ledger page, which is, oh, I just love them so much. And you can tell that they used old inkwell ink and pen. And then we have this wonderful antique paper journaling tag that I made. And in here is another one of those wonderful, from a craft magazine or a crochet book, I think. Yeah, crochet book and knitting. Isn't that wonderful? Look at the images. Oh my gosh, they're so fantastic. And it's mounted on top of a vintage atlas page. 1926 blank ledger page, and this wonderful postcard. And I believe I looked this up and I couldn't pinpoint it, but I'm guessing, sorry, that this is from the 1930s, which is a really beautiful scene in British Columbia. Another one of Pauline Johnson's Indigenous poems here. And you know I'm all about cheesy recipe pictures. This one is from a cookbook. My God, pineapple layer cake. They were crazy about coconut in the 50s, let me tell you. And a bowl of lemons cut up. Okay. How great is this one? This is a 1950s bingo card, but it's a different kind of bingo. It's called color bingo. So you'll notice the numbers only go up to 15. And it was just a different kind of game. And I just think that is so colorful and so fun. You'll see here, I ripped this out of a book. Here, the title page was called The Greatest Good. And this is a wonderful magazine page. Also, I believe this is from McCall's Magazine in the 1950s. And it's all for embroidery and knitting. And the images are just wonderful. More of that wonderful ledger paper. And that brings us to the end. So I hope you'll visit my Etsy store, etsy.com/shop/hyperstamper with a capital H. Please subscribe so I can share more of my journals with you as soon as I make them. Thanks.